Quiet, please.
The subtleties of clay, grass and hard courts give tennis the sort of variety few other sports enjoy, but beneath each surface lie even more complexities. The Australian Open, for example, has had 3 different hard court providers since their move from the grass in 1988. But what's been behind the changes in Melbourne? A desire to keep innovating, or something a little more pragmatic? This is the story of one tournament's journey from grass to GreenSet. From 1905 to 1972, the nomadic Australian Championships, later the Australian Open, bounced from city to city before finally setting at the Kooyong Lawn Tennis Club in Melbourne. Jimmy Connors, Martina Navratilova, Yvonne Goolagong and John McEnroe were just a few of the names to thrive on the grass that encouraged the classic serve and volley style. But as the 1980s wore on, fans and the broadcasters were looking for something else, namely longer and more dramatic rallies which would thrill the crowds and swell the TV viewing figures. As the broadcasters called the tune, the tournament organisers also recognised the need for change. For many years, the Australian Open had been seen as the poor relation of the Grand Slam events. The courts attracted criticism at times, and its scheduling, which saw it played in December until 1985, proved a barrier to attract the biggest names. Bjorn Borg played the tournament just once in his career. Jimmy Connors took part twice, and Chris Evert decided not to play between 1975 and 1980. Tennis Australia spotted a chance to get ahead of the curve by switching to hardcourt. And in 1988, the same year the last wooden tennis racket was used at Wimbledon, the Australian Open migrated to the National Tennis Centre at Flinders Park, later renamed Melbourne Park. The tournament had outgrown Kooyong, and the decision was vindicated by a 75% increase in attendance in the first year. Hardcourts don't need the costly maintenance of grass either, so coffers swelled. Although still green, the new surface, Australian-owned Rebound Ace, was made by laying a polyurethane rubber on top of a concrete or asphalt base, then painted with an acrylic top coat. The surface remained for 19 years, but complaints were regularly raised by players about the inconsistency in pace and bounce. Home favourite Leighton Hewitt, in particular, was unimpressed. "If I've got to win the Australian Open on cow shit, I'll try my best to do it," he said in 2006. On another occasion, he was heard to yell, "Fix the courts!" during a match on the Rod Laver Arena. Melbourne's hot conditions were said to make the court sticky, and this was blamed for a spate of ankle injuries sustained at the tournament. Hewitt added, "I think the heat was a major factor in Rebound Ace, not only the way it played, but also how grinding it was on your body, your hips and lower back. We saw a lot of twisted ankles over the years, and that's due to the amount of heat that was held in the court and how sticky it got. If you just put your hand on the Rebound Ace surface on a 35-degree day, you're nearly blistering straight away." However, Rebound Ace's technical director Paul Bull refuted the claims. "By the time it gets to the time of year, the first tournament, everybody thinks the players are fresh and starting anew, but they're not. They've just come off a very tough 4 or 5 month circuit over in the States on really hard courts. Most of them are carrying injuries, and the injuries you see here are not the Rebound Ace surface, they're injuries that have been carried through." Hewitt's concerns may have been partly self-preservation. The court played medium to medium fast, which didn't suit the counterpuncher. The science behind it was inconclusive. Polyurethane does not melt when heated, but some research suggests exposure to UV and visible light could cause a variability in the foam structure. Whether or not the observations of Hewitt and the other disgruntled players were true could not be proved, but the debate and the ageing of the exciting courts seemed to force Tennis Australia's hand, as Plexicushion was laid just in time for the 2008 tournament. It was said Plexicushion Prestige would retain less heat while simultaneously providing a more consistent bounce, achieved by reducing Rebound Ace's 15mm of cushion top layer to just 4mm. An underlayer of liquid rubber was designed to melt slightly in the extreme heat to make the surface more forgiving, helping to prevent injury. The colour changed too, from green, redolent of the old grass surface Rebound Ace replaced, to blue to match the Aussie Open's branding. Tournament director Craig Tiley said, "We had an extensive review, and after much research, we decided it was time for a change. This is about what is best for players and fans. Plexicushion is a cushioned acrylic surface that retains less heat and guarantees us a consistent medium to medium fast pace across all courts at Melbourne Park. The blue court looks better, it will be easier for everyone to see the ball, and the vibrancy of the colour just lifts the entire venue. Tiley, a clever marketer, will have known how changes to the court's look and response would have benefits to fans both in the venue and watching at home. His remarks about the heat and consistent pace across all courts also hinted at listening to players' concerns. But almost immediately, accusations were levelled that the new surface played identically to the US Open's Deco turf, making the Australian Open a clone. The fact both court surfaces were made by the same company was hard to ignore. Tiley dismissed the court pacing concerns, arguing the pace was customisable, as it is for all hardcourt surfaces. Paul McNamee, Tiley's predecessor, decried the change as expensive and unnecessary, pointing to the scientific inquiry that found no fault in Rebound Ace and imploring the tennis world, please don't try to rewrite history. Nevertheless, the change was made, and then in 2020 it was made again. After a tendering process, following a year in which Tennis Australia reported a 50% drop in profits, the previous manufacturer's California Sports Surfaces were replaced by Spanish firm GreenSet Worldwide. This was not a wholesale change. Plexicushion remains the surface type, but with the top acrylic layer replaced. Whether this was a temporary fix before GreenSet completely reinstalled the courts remains to be seen, but it wasn't without its issues. Ahead of the Auckland tournament, which acts as a warm-up for the Aussie Open, the acrylic coating lifted from the surface, requiring urgent repair. Tiley had asserted the Australian Open courts would remain the same, though of course any change is a gamble. Part of the motivation may have been to once again check the speed of the court. The Plexicushion may have been considered slower when it was initially installed, but Hawkeye stats in 2017 showed the Australian Open show courts to be playing the fastest of all 4 slams. And of course, this does not appeal to broadcasters. Furthermore, a Tennis Australia and Victoria University joint study conducted between 2011 and 2016 found that injury rates were increasing, and, more worryingly, there was a greater than 2-fold increase in stress fractures for both men and women over the 5-year period. Might this, like the move away from Rebound Ace, have been behind the change of supplier? Either way, to the untrained eye, the Australian Open may not have undergone much change since it moved from grass to hardcourt in the late 80s, but beneath the surface lies many a tale.